Number 27, Chestnut Avenue is one of the many old houses in town, but none quite so hauntingly romantic. It's modest, about 4 bedrooms, and set back in a garden now so overgrown that the house is barely visible from the road. Its sadness and romance come from standing empty for 60 years, quietly falling apart. In the mid-1950s, it was home to the Matthews family, who had owned it since the late 1700s. The house belonged then to the local doctor, his wife, and their 2 young daughters. All 4 were tragically murdered during a robbery gone terribly wrong. The criminals were caught and sentenced to life imprisonment, spared hanging only because it had just been abolished. By that time, the once large Matthews family had dwindled. The doctor left no will, so it took a while to find the rightful heir, a sheep farmer in Australia, descended from a branch of the family that emigrated decades earlier. He never intended to move back and put the house up for sale, but no one wanted it due to its grim past. Eventually, he lost interest. Rich and content elsewhere, he let the house decay, paint peeling, garden choking itself with weeds. And so it remains today. That's the backdrop of my story. I'm Sam Jackson, a journalist for the local Courier. One morning, my editor called me in. 2 young people were with him, Olivia Wainwright and Paul Hughes, history students at the local university. They were researching the Matthews family and had discovered an old deed box, unopened for over 40 years, at the Matthews solicitor's office. Somehow, they persuaded the solicitors to lend it to them. Inside, they found various documents and, surprisingly, the keys to number 27. Paul and Olivia planned to visit the house but expected the solicitors wouldn't approve. So, they approached our paper to join them and cover the visit, thinking that if the story made local news, it would be harder for the solicitors to object later. My editor liked the idea and assigned me to accompany them. "I'll send a photographer," he said. "Get some spooky, atmospheric shots. I want this as our lead feature next Saturday." That settled it. I had my assignment, and Paul and Olivia had their backup. The next morning, the 3 of us and the photographer, Graham James, gathered outside the gate. Graham was a seasoned pro who had mentored me early in my career. I spent the previous evening reading about the murder from our archives. It was horrific. Dr. Richard Matthews and his wife Mary had just put their daughters, Alice, 9, and Wendy, 7, to bed and settled down for the evening. Richard heard glass breaking at the back and went to check. 2 intruders were in the kitchen. Panicked, they struck him with a crowbar, killing him instantly. Mary followed and screamed as she witnessed the murder. The girls, likely awakened by her cries, were later found dead at the foot of the stairs. The intruders fled but were caught days later. At trial, they claimed they thought the house would be empty. Thanks to the new law, they avoided hanging and got life sentences. Now, standing before the house in the warm sunlight, I felt a chill despite the peaceful scene. Paul pulled out the keys. "I hope these still work," he said. "They haven't been used in decades, could be rusted shut." He turned the key and to everyone's surprise, the door swung open quietly. No creaks or groans. Graham was already snapping photos of the house and our entry as we stepped inside. Despite being locked up for over 50 years, the house smelled surprisingly fresh. Inside, it was far better preserved than its weathered exterior suggested. Dust was minimal, and none of the windows were broken, remarkable, considering that boys often throw stones through abandoned windows. It almost felt as if the house warded off intruders by its eerie presence, a fanciful idea I quickly dismissed for my story's opening. Even more striking, the house was still fully furnished. Since no buyer had come forward, it had simply been locked and left untouched. Oriental rugs covered the hallway floor, and a tall clock stood against a wall. Other rooms held antique furniture, likely family heirlooms, alongside unmistakably 1950s items, a Bakelite radio, a small black and white TV, and large faux leather armchairs. The kitchen was pure mid-century, with an upright gas stove, twin-tub washing machine, and an old-fashioned refrigerator, luxuries at the time, showing the Matthews lived comfortably. The house itself was a classic mid-Georgian brick structure, featuring a stone portico centered on the front, flanked by 2 symmetrical windows below and 5 above. To the left of the hall was a sitting room opening into the dining room, which led to a service corridor and the kitchen and staff quarters beyond. To the right were a grander sitting room at the front and what had clearly been Dr. Matthews's study at the back. A handsome 3-flight staircase rose from the hall, with a door beneath leading to the service passage. We all headed upstairs, silently agreeing to get an overall sense of the house before inspecting individual rooms. The first floor held 4 bedrooms, 1 in each corner, and above the front hall was an outdated bathroom with a freestanding roll-top tub and a high-level cistern. Every bedroom was fully furnished. I found it especially poignant that the children's room still held toys on the shelves. After our tour, each of us gravitated toward the room that had intrigued us most. Olivia and Paul lingered in the nursery. I found it too heavy with sorrow and moved to the main bedroom. Graham headed downstairs to the study. Dr. and Mrs. Matthews's bedroom was well chosen, with 2 windows facing the front and 2 to the side, offering wide views over the now wild garden. Through the tangled growth, one could barely make out former lawns and flower beds. The room held a heavy mahogany suite, bed, ladies' vanity, gentleman's chest of drawers, and 2 wardrobes, presumably his and hers. Opening one, I found Mrs. Matthews's dresses still hanging inside. Without quite knowing why, despite feeling intrusive, I lifted a dress from the wardrobe. It was pure 1950s style, a heavy silk with a bold pink and green floral pattern. Sleeveless and knee-length with a slim pencil skirt, it suited an upper-middle-class doctor's wife. On a whim, I held it up to a full-length mirror. I've never cared for women's clothes, so this sudden interest baffled me. The cut and color looked flattering. Shaking off the odd sensation, I returned the dress and left the room quickly. Coming down the stairs, I called Graham to start planning shots. When he emerged from the study, something about him seemed subtly changed. Was it my imagination, or was his graying hair darker and cut shorter? He stood straighter, and his usual beer belly appeared gone. In fact, he looked quite handsome. Handsome, I thought. Graham was a longtime friend and colleague. Handsome wasn't a word I'd ever used for him. The house's atmosphere was clearly affecting us all. Just then, Olivia and Paul came downstairs. Their movements were different too. Olivia was sucking her thumb and flicking her skirt like a child, while Paul held her hand delicately, taking small, shy steps with eyes lowered. "This won't do," I exclaimed. "If we don't pull ourselves together, we'll never finish our work, and as always, I'll be left cleaning up after you. A woman's work is never done." Hearing myself say that about myself was almost unbelievable. "Take it easy, old girl," Graham said. "If we all pitch in, we'll have everything done in no time." With that, he returned to the study and closed the door behind him. "Mummy, can we get out the best dolls to play with? We promise not to break them," Olivia asked, standing before me. "Of course, dear," I replied, almost surprised by my own words. "Now off you go with your sister and behave. Mummy has work to do." Olivia and Paul giggled as they ran back upstairs. I leaned against the newel post, struggling to catch my breath. What was happening? Was I losing my mind? Why were Olivia and Paul acting like children? And why was I speaking as if I were a woman and a mother at that? Trying to think rationally, I admitted I'd behaved oddly myself upstairs. Before I knew it, my feet moved on their own, carrying me back to the first floor. I walked into the main bedroom, went straight to Mrs. Matthews's wardrobe, and took out the dress I'd admired earlier. I laid it on the bed and opened her bureau. Inside the top drawer, neatly folded lingerie greeted me. Carefully, I moved aside some items until I found an old-fashioned zippered girdle, which I placed next to the dress. Next, I selected a matching ivory silk set, bra, French knickers, and half-slip lavishly trimmed with lace. From another drawer, I pulled out an unopened pack of fuller-fashioned nylon stockings. All the while, my mind screamed that this was wrong, begging me to stop, but I couldn't. After laying out the clothes, I began to undress. Surely, I wouldn't go so far as to put them on. The thought was absurd. Even if I wanted to dress as a woman, and I didn't, there was no way these delicate garments would fit my bulky frame. But that's exactly what happened. Naked, I stepped into the girdle, wriggled it up my waist, and fastened the hooks and zipper. To my shock, it fit. Either the girdle had stretched beyond reason, or my waist had mysteriously shrunk. Sitting on the bed's edge, I opened the nylons, rolled them into donut shapes, and slid them carefully up my legs. I aligned the seams and clipped the stocking tops to the garter tabs hanging from the girdle. I then stepped into the knickers and pulled them up, followed by the half-slip. From the waist down, I was fully clad in feminine undergarments. Horror gripped me as my hands reached for the bra. Despite my struggle, I slipped my arms through the straps and fastened the hooks behind me. I was stunned at how effortlessly I performed this. After countless struggles to remove bras, there was no way I should have put one on so easily. Looking in the mirror, my worst fears came true. The lingerie hadn't grown larger, my body had shrunk to fit them. I stood bizarrely dressed in feminine underwear, the bra cups hanging loosely over my flat chest. Then, as if responding to my thoughts, my chest began to swell until the bra supported two perfect, milk-white chests. Oddly, I thought they looked remarkably good for a woman of 30 who'd nursed 2 children. Where that notion came from, I had no idea. Examining myself further, I saw other changes: a narrow waist, curving hips, a pert, pear-shaped bottom, and elegant legs tapering from slim ankles to dimpled knees and rounded thighs. A figure any woman would envy, but one I, as a man, wanted to disappear. I sat on the vanity stool, struggling to steady my racing heart with deep breaths. The rising and falling of my new bosom caught my attention. In the mirror, I saw an attractive, lingerie-clad female body topped by my aging male face. Unable to resist, I opened the vanity drawer and pulled out makeup. As I applied foundation, powder, and eye makeup, my face subtly transformed. Rough skin smoothed to porcelain, my large nose became smaller with a cute tilt, my eyebrows arched gracefully, and my brown eyes brightened to a vivid blue. Beneath it all, I recognized myself, just as I might have looked if born female and 15 years younger. I finished with bright red lipstick, carefully blotted with tissue. Then I picked up a brush and began styling my hair. As I brushed, it lengthened and changed from mousy brown to golden blonde. Looking fully feminine, I noticed my hands slim, elegant, with longer nails coated in glossy red polish. I stood gazing at my reflection. Not bad for a mother of 2, I thought, smoothing the half-slip over my hips. It felt strange, as if 2 people shared my mind. Sam was horrified by what was happening but powerless to stop it. Meanwhile, Mary seemed calm and happy to be back in her old bedroom. Somehow, I had become possessed by Mary Matthews's spirit, transformed into her image. She showed no memory of her murder. Instead, the feeling I sensed was one of serene confidence and love. There was enough of Sam left for me to check beneath my slip. My male anatomy was gone, replaced by the female organ and soft triangle of pubic hair of a grown woman. Oddly, I wasn't scared. Mary's calmness dominated, and Sam seemed willing to accept what was happening. I moved to the bed, picked up the silk dress from the wardrobe, and unzipped it. Slipping into the fitted skirt, I wriggled the dress up and fastened it at the back with surprising ease. I adjusted the slip beneath and smoothed the silk over my stomach and hips. From a jewel box on the vanity, I took a pair of pearl earrings and clipped them onto my now pierced ears, fastening a matching necklace around my slender neck. The dress's boat neckline showcased the pearls beautifully against my pale skin. A delicate pearl bracelet and slim gold watch completed the look. I slipped my nylon-clad feet into high-heeled pumps and gave myself a quick spray of perfume. Smiling at my reflection, I thought, yes, I'm still a beautiful woman, 28 years old, mother of 2 wonderful girls. No woman could have had a better husband than my Richard. It was surreal. I felt completely at ease as a woman, though I knew I was still Sam Jackson, reporter for the Courier. Somehow, Mary and I coexisted within this single, now female, body. Slowly, I walked from the bedroom down the stairs. I felt the gentle pull of the suspenders on my girdle and the soft rustle of nylons brushing together. Halfway down the stairs, I spotted Richard, Alice, and Wendy gathered in the hall. My Richard was handsome, and a rush of desire swept over me. My precious girls looked solemn. Wendy held Alice's hand. Though I knew they were actually Olivia and Paul, my heart ached for them. "Oh, my darlings," I said, tears welling up. "It's been so long, but at last we're together again." I hurried down the last flight and gathered the girls in my arms, kissing and hugging them through tears. Standing, I turned to Richard. His broad smile welcomed me as he embraced me. Even though I knew Richard was really Daniel, I returned his kisses with heartfelt enthusiasm. "I take it we're all aware of our dual natures," Richard said, taking charge. "Yes, dear," I replied, and the girls nodded. Richard continued, "I suspect the spirits of the Matthews have been preserved by their old home. Our arrival, the first visitors in 50 years, has reawakened them. Our old selves remain intact. Though our bodies have changed, I know this beautiful woman is both my wife Mary and my old friend Sam. And you too," he gestured to Alice and Wendy, "are both young girls and grown college students Olivia and Paul. By the way, which is which?" "I'm Olivia," Alice said. "And I'm Paul," Wendy responded. "I must say, being a girl feels strange," he added. "You should complain," I laughed. "Just wait until you have to deal with bras and girdles. Do you think we're stuck like this?" Alice Olivia asked. "I'm used to being female, but I don't want to go through puberty and teenage years again, thank you." "I don't know," Richard Daniel mused. "Maybe when we leave the house, reality will snap back, and we'll become ourselves again." "Let's try it and find out," I said quickly. We instinctively held hands as Richard opened the front door and we stepped onto the porch. Everything blurred for a moment. I felt dizzy and nauseous. Then, focus returned, and I looked out over the neat lawns of number 27, Chestnut Avenue. "But this place was overgrown when we came in," I remarked, confused. "Yes, and that's not the only change," the man beside me said. "Look at us." I turned to study the man carefully. Of course I recognized him. It was Daniel Matthews, owner of a stylish photography studio and, more importantly, my husband. My husband? Yes, I was Laura Matthews, 40 years old and features editor for our county lifestyle magazine. These two lovely young women were our twin daughters, Olivia and Grace, both in their final year studying history at university and home for the holidays. It was August 2013, and we had lived at number 27 for a full year. In fact, I was busy planning an anniversary party for the four of us that weekend. Looking closer, Olivia and Grace were dressed fashionably in tight miniskirts and loose cotton tops, their long, bare legs perched on high platform heels. I had long given up trying to convince them those shoes would damage their feet and cause them pain later in life, just as my mother had warned me when spike-heeled stilettos were all the rage in my youth. Daniel was tall and slim, sporting a neat little mustache that I loved. It always tickled my nose when we kissed. I wore a smart cream linen suit with slingback sandals, having just returned from the office and eager to change into something casual for a lovely summer evening with my family. "I'll go change," I told Daniel. "You fix us all a drink." "I'll have a glass of Pinot Grigio, please." Upstairs in our bedroom, as I slipped out of my suit and peeled off my tights, a sudden sense of déjà vu washed over me. For a fleeting moment, everything snapped clear. I was Sam Jackson, reporter. I was Mary Matthews, 1950s mother and housewife, and now I was Laura Matthews. I remembered that Daniel's grandfather had been Edward Matthews, younger brother of Dr. Richard Matthews. After Richard's cruel murder along with his family, Edward inherited the Chestnut Avenue house. In this timeline, there was no Australian heir. Daniel's grandfather and then his father had found living at number 27 too painful and had rented it out. But for Daniel and me, 2 generations removed from the tragedy and strangers to Richard, Mary, and their daughters, things were different. After Daniel's father passed a couple of years earlier, The path was clear for us to reclaim the family home once the current tenancy ended. The house needed extensive renovation, and the past year had been hard work. Yet, strangely, the house seemed pleased to welcome a Matthews family back. I'm not usually superstitious, but it felt like fate. We poured money and time into restoring its former glory, and now we felt settled. The girls loved it, too, always eager to come home when university allowed. After a refreshing shower to wash away the day's grime and stress, I slipped into clean underwear and a pretty summer dress. Looking out the window, I saw Grace carrying a tray of drinks onto the lawn. Leaning out, I called, "I'll be down in a minute, darling. We can all enjoy our drinks together, and then I'll make supper." Smiling, I took in the cozy bedroom I shared with Daniel, feeling a warm anticipation spread through me as I thought about the night ahead. My husband was a passionate lover, and I was no slouch myself. I hurried downstairs to join my family, pushing thoughts of Sam and Mary aside. Deep down, I knew Laura was a blend of both their souls, but I felt completely at home in my skin. How my life, or lives, might have unfolded otherwise didn't matter. For now, I was the mother of 2 wonderful daughters and wife to a handsome man. That was more than enough. If you appreciated this story and wish to show your support, don't forget to join me on Patreon for exclusive content.